Hello. Today we are going to be talking about linear equations. Linear equations are basically equations that form a line. So linear equations make a line. Now what's important about it is how do I recognize if it's a linear equation? Basically you're going to notice one thing. The x and the y will not have any other powers associated with it. So our favorite linear equation is this one right here, this y equals mx plus b, also known as slope-intercept form, where m is your slope, b is your y-intercept. Y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. Now, x and y stand for points. Those are your coordinate points, where x is your first number and y is your second number. So you can plug in any value for x, put this number in here, multiply it times your slope, add it to your y-intercept, and you will get the coordinate, or the y-coordinate of that point. This is why we love it so much. You can find any point so easy with this y equals mx plus b format. Now, in linear equations, they have a fancy term, and they call that functions. Now, from yesterday, we were talking about functions, and functions are this form of f of x equals mx plus b. Now, that's the exact same thing, except instead of y, they're calling it f of x. That means this f of x is the same thing as the letter y. So these two are the exact same thing. But the f of x tells you that it is a function, and that functions will give you only one answer for each value of x you plug in. So you're not going to plug in one value for x and get two different answers. You're going to get one. That's it. So there's one coordinate point that goes with each x. So they call that a function. Now, most common you're going to see is called standard form. Standard form looks a little different. Now, it's still linear, but you're going to have a number times x plus a number times y equals another number. So you're going to get three different numbers, and they call that standard form. And when you're finding these from story problems, most often equations will fall into this standard form kind of category. So how do we graph? How do we make that line from a standard form? This is where most people ask about. So honestly, it's all about the intercepts. So to graph from a standard form, you have to find where it crosses the x and the y axes. So, oops, sorry. So we're going to start with an example. So say x plus 2y equals 3. Seems pretty easy enough. To find the intercepts, we're going to plug in 0 into each x and y. So let's start with 1. Let's first put in a 0 in the x spot. So if I put a 0 in the x spot, I'm going to have 0 plus 2y equals 3. Well, now that I replaced x with one letter, I can solve for y. So then 0 is really nothing. That saves you a lot of work. So really, your equation is just 2y equals 3. So let's divide by 2 on both sides. And you're going to get y equals 3/2. Now let's make a table. And in this table, I'm going to take this 3/2. Oops, if I can grab it. And I'm going to put it in my table. So when x is 0, y is 3/2. Okay? Next, let's replace the y with 0 instead. So we're going to go x plus 2 times 0 equals 3. Now, the best part about 0 is anything times it makes 0. So this is really saying x plus 0 equals 3, or just x equals 3. Oops, I'm having the same problem again. So x was 3, and y is 0. So that's going to give us a couple points right here. So now we have 2 points. And if you remember from geometry, 2 points determine a line. So now I can go to my graph. I can go on the x, 0 left and right. I can go up 3 halves. Well, up 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves is where that point is. Or, 3 halves is 1.5. Next, over on the x, 1, 2, 3, and then up and down 0. So now with those 2 points, you can draw a line that goes right through those 2 points. And that is your line. So now we can graph this line, and every single point on this line will work in this equation. So every point in that line will work in that equation. Now, this is not the only way to graph these equations. There are others. Oops. Let's back up there. Okay. So, one other way is taking this equation, this x plus 2y equals 3, and we could just do a little algebra on it. I could take this x and I could minus x to both sides. That leaves 2y equals minus x plus 3. I could divide by 2 on both sides, and that's going to leave me a y equals negative 1/2 x plus 3 halves. And so then I can use my slope and my y-intercept to graph the line, which means go up 3 halves, which is right here, and then run a slope of down 1 over 2, and that will get you the exact same line. But to be standard form, both the a, the b, and the c numbers cannot be fractions. Fractions are okay in slope-intercept form, but not in standard form. Standard form doesn't like fractions. No fractions in it. Or decimals, because decimals is really just part of a number, just like a fraction is part of a number. So no fractions, no decimals, and there's one last thing, no multiples. You can't have any multiples in that. So if I had this, 1/2 x plus 3y equals 4.5, that is not standard form. Easiest tip-off, right here. It's 1/2. That's a fraction. You can't have fractions in standard form. So what are we going to do? What's the easiest way to get rid of a fraction? Multiply by any other common denominators. Right now, this is the only denominator. So let's multiply everything in the equation by 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And basically, you're multiplying times 2 on both sides of the equation, which is legal. So 2 halves is just 1 solid x. 2 times 3 is 6y equals 4.5 times 2 is 9. So x plus 6y equals 9 is the standard form of the exact same equation. What if these were all doubled? What if I doubled it again? What if I had 2x plus 12y equaled 18? That's still the exact same line, but it's not standard form because these 1, 2, 3 values are just multiples of those. So standard form wants to keep it as less as possible. So keep those numbers small, which is really nice. Okay, let's do a couple quick problems just to get that, see if you got the hang of it. I'm going to ask you, please, find out, is it linear, yes or no, and explain why. So coming back, how do you know if it's linear? You're looking in the exponents. If x or y has an exponent on it, it is not linear. Okay, you can't have those crazy weird exponents. This one looks weird. This is really h of x is a function notation for basically saying y equals. And if you wanted to rearrange it and put minus 2x plus 1.1, it's the same exact equation. No exponents on the x and y. It is linear. Yes, linear. Okay, what if they say write it in standard form? Well, number 6 here says, that's my favorite slope-intercept form, but how do I go back? Well, I know the x has to come first. So I've got 3x's. I'm going to put that onto the other side by minusing 3x's, minusing 3x's. Well, you can't combine 3x's and a y because they're two different letters. So I'm going to leave it as minus 3x plus y equals minus 5. Now, that looks pretty good, but one thing our book says is it likes it when x is positive. So what if I went through and I multiplied everything times a negative 1? Timesing everything by a negative 1, or the same value, is legal. So that looks like negative negative makes a positive 3x. But this becomes a minus y equals a positive 5. And that seems to just look a little bit better. So that is your standard form. Okay? So let's just take a look at number 7 here real quick. Not quite in standard form. I've got the 4x on the left. I need the 10y next to it. So let's minus 10y to both sides. And what is 4x's? Minus 10y's. Well, it's 4x's minus 10y's. Isn't that funny how that sounds? Okay, so the 6 is still there. Now, this looks standard form, but it is not because of multiples. Did you notice that you could divide every single term in here by 2? Divide by 2, divide by 2? In which case, these are multiples. So 4 divided by 2 is 2x. 10 divided by 2 is minus 5y, and it's going to equal a 3. And do you see how these values are just that smaller than where they were before? Smaller is better. Last one, it has a fraction in it. Oh, don't worry about it. Let's just minus the 2/3 x. Treat it like it's a whole number. Minus 2/3 x, and you get a minus 2/3 x plus y equals 1. Not standard form because there's a fraction in it. What's your common denominator? It's a divide by 3. So let's times by 3. Do the opposite. Times by 3 and times by 3. 3 cancels the 3 on the bottom. You're just left. Actually, you know what? While I'm at it, do you notice this negative here? Let's get rid of the negative. Let's multiply by negative 3 on all of these. And the negative will cancel out, leaving me a positive 2x's. Negative 3 times y is a minus 3y. And 1 times a minus 3 is a minus 3. Now x is positive. We like that. There's no multiples between 2 and 3. This is standard form. Okay? So, if you have questions, again, feel free to contact me. If you want to pause the video and go back, watch it, please do that. Good luck. Have a great day.